Okay, I think we are live. Welcome to our Wednesday night live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning here, welcome. So, how is everybody's week going? And I guess just for context, for those of you that might be listening to this on the podcast, today is September 16th, 2020. So, how is everybody doing? Anything new and exciting going on? Any challenges you've been having? UNA is here. Says, "Hi, Dana. I just got the notice." Jack is saying Huffle Mom is stalled out. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. Oh boy. He says she'll come as fast as she can, but with the car that won't start. Oh boy. Well, I hope she is safe and um, you know, no no hurries. If she can make it, great. And if she can't, she will be missed and we'll catch her next week. Lori Ray says, "Hi, Dana. I turn 55 tomorrow. Does that make me a senior citizen? LOL." I think by AARP standards, it does. It's funny that you should mention this. I was just thinking about that the other day because AARP just starts sending people stuff at age 55 and it can be kind of kind of jarring to think, gosh, 55 just doesn't seem that old. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like a senior citizen. Like 75 seems like a senior citizen. I don't know, strange. But yes, but happy birthday. Happy early birthday. Tammy says, "Hey, it's the first time on your live stream." Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Oh boy, Jack says, according for AARP, 50. 50 is the age to get into their club. Wow. Okay, that's coming up even faster than I realized. Donna, thank you. She says, "Hi, Dana, we love you." Oh, well, I appreciate that. I care deeply about each and every one of you, too. I'm trying to think. I should have kind of prepared some topics, or I feel like I think about stuff all throughout the week that would make for great kind of commentary or comments, and then I forget come Wednesday. Oh, I don't know what that is that's chiming. I'll just close that out. What's going on? What am I? Sorry, losing what I'm doing here. Mm, thank you, Jack. That's a good question, and I'm not 100% sure. He says, Dana, book club. A few people have been asking about when is book club going to resume. I don't know. I don't know. Every month, the last Thursday just gets here before I realize it. And I know we're a good like 4 months behind on it. Um, so I really want to think of a new format to with how to go about it, because I feel like every month there's um, I don't know, there's challenges with it. So Rhonda says, "I'm going through some serious grief right now. I've just disconnected from my family entirely. It's very scary. Pete Walker's book is my new best friend." Yes, he's wonderful, isn't he? I just love everything of his that I've read so far. Which book are you reading? And um, And as far as disconnecting from your family, yeah, I can imagine that would be very scary and overwhelming and full of a lot of grief. I hope that you're able to get the support that you need during this time. Kenneth is saying, "Did you see the 2 sheriff deputies that got shot?" No. Where was this? Right? Rhonda says, "It was a question of the double bind, where you're miserable and betray yourself if you remain in the family, but really you're abandoned either way." Yeah, that's the piece that I think takes a long, long time to fully comprehend and for people, um, to kinda come to terms with, of staying with people, "Oh, well, they're family and, family's forever," and this there's this sense of obligation or guilt or, kinda what have you, but then you realize they're not really there anyhow, they're not they wouldn't well, they might call me if they got in trouble, but I sure wouldn't call them. They wouldn't be there with their time or energy or resources or anything to help. It's that relationship's very much a one-way street. And when you realize that with certain people, it's really painful. Rhonda saying the book she is reading by Pete Walker is The Tao of Fully Feeling. Yes, that is a wonderful book, and especially for everything that you're going through right now. Yes, wonderful, wonderful book. So, are there any topics in particular that you guys would um, like to discuss tonight? And I guess while people are kind of coming on and everything, um, if you have any questions or I should say any topic ideas for these live streams, you can email me. I've got somebody who's helping me out with email now, so yay for that. You can email me at Dear Dana at thriveafterabuse.com. Okay, actually, here's a topic that that I just remembered, um, that a lot of people seem to struggle with is the concept of how to move on, like how to move on when somebody's broken trust, kind of how to get over, quote unquote, get over those feelings of betrayal and hurt, and especially if you're going to continue staying in the relationship with them. And I wanted to point out that one of the biggest challenges with this line of thinking is that the person with the resistance feels like they're the one that needs to kind of quote unquote move on or get over things. And the reason they're having so much difficulty is because that hurt and that pain in that relationship hasn't been resolved yet. And that's not something, if that relationship's going to continue, that's not something that they can do. That is only part of it. That's part of the work, but it's what the other person needs to do. So, like for example, somebody might say, "Oh, I caught my partner, I don't texting other women or other men, whatever it might be, other people, sexually flirting, this, that, and the other." And uh, they apologized, and but I still can't quite get over it, and I'm just still feeling really jealous and insecure, and to take things up a notch, then they might even do something that's kind of within the same zip code of that behavior. So staring at the waitress, kind of ogling other women or men in front of you, or making comments about coworkers or other people's attractiveness. That, even though it's not the same behavior, it's still in the zip code of that same type of inappropriate behavior. And it's a normal and reasonable feeling to feel insecure with that, because that's wildly inappropriate behavior. I would really be more concerned about somebody who was okay with that, because that kind of shows their level of emotional investment in the relationship. So, um, and I don't mean to say you know, uh, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Doesn't necessarily have to do with their emotional investment in the relationship, I guess, because I'm thinking about people that tend to that don't get jealous. Because I guess I don't really get that jealous, and so those kinds of things to me wouldn't. They might kind of bother me, but it um, wouldn't be a huge deal. Regardless, if it bothers you, it's a valid issue, and I see a lot of people that feel like they should just kind of get over it. And the thing is, it's not, it's not old issues that tend to come up. It's unresolved issues that do. And so when you kind of see things from that perspective of, okay, it's unresolved issues, and what part of this needs to be resolved. If the other person is continuing to do that same behavior, text, flirting, inappropriate, looking at wait staff or other people, or mentioning coworkers and stuff like that that's disrespectful, and it's not okay. And um, it's just not okay. So if they're continuing to do that, then of course that person's still going to have issues, because the behavior hasn't stopped yet. Uh, so they have to stop doing what they're doing, you know, and then they need to be fully accountable for it. And then they need to be willing to live a life of transparency. So like there also has to be this period of appropriate, I shouldn't even say period, like long-standing period of appropriate behavior on that end. Like you'll have to go out with them a good 2, 3, 4 dozen times to a restaurant or in public around other women or whatnot, to see, can they keep their eyes, straight ahead, or are they still kind of rubbernecking? You've got to see them acting appropriately. If they're not acting appropriately, of course, you're having trouble getting over it or moving on, because the hurtful event isn't over. So assuming that this person has, um, I don't even know, radically changed their behavior and stopped all of that, then that's when a person is able to start moving forward and actually healing, if they're going to continue that relationship. But really, I would say the vast majority of the time, when somebody shows you that they have a lack of respect for you and a lack of respect for the relationship, it's just not even worth your time or energy trying to make it work. Like that kind of stuff is just, it's so outrageous and so hurtful and so damaging that, you're just, I don't think that, in my book, that's not really an issue to try to work through. Okay. That's a good point. UNA says, feelings are valid. Unacceptable behaviors, what can be brought up, not feelings. Right. Right. I think a lot of times people, when they're saying, "Oh, I have my feelings hurt," or they're making a um, a situation like that's inappropriate behavior, when they're making it about feelings, that can kind of diminish the, uh, kind of diminish the pain of the event, because it's even though their feelings are valid, like that's an appropriate behavior, you know? So, and most people would take issue with that. And that's reasonable. So it's the inappropriate behavior that's the problem. It's not the person's feelings or their inability to quote unquote move on. let's see here. Right. And B says they don't give you time to earn trust because they refuse to change. Right. Exactly. Yeah, and that's not workable. So when someone is refusing to change or they're blaming you, saying things like, "Well, I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you for calling me out on my bad behavior," or the reason I'm acting this way is somehow your fault or somebody else's fault or what have you. That stuff's crazy making, and it's so immature, that that's just your sign. Like there really isn't a relationship present if there's not effective communication and emotional maturity. Like it really requires those two things at the minimum. And if those aren't there, then there's nothing there. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Jessica says, ugh, the I'll forgive you. Just that classic gaslighting. Yep. Okay, looks like Liza. Mm, okay, let's see. People are talking about stuff. Okay, Jessica saying, how do I stop attracting narcissistic men? Last one said he was looking to understand sexual chemistry pretty quick. And when I said no thanks, he pretended to send me a text for another girl. Oh, wow. That's hilarious and ridiculous all at the same time. Um, here's the deal with online dating, especially, you're going to catch it's a net. You're casting a net out into the ocean, and it's a mixed bag of what comes back. There's a lot of garbage behavior out there. So you can wear yourself out trying to figure out, okay, how do I stop attracting narcissistic people or problematic people in general? That's kind of a lost cause because like I said, it's kind of you are going to attract who you attract. Um, you know, so it's more important with to focus on like who are you attracted to and how long do you let people stay in your life. So like that kind of a guy you saw right away. You're like, okay, these are this is games, this is ridiculous, this is nonsense, and I'm done. And you were done. And that's all any of us can do. So that's it. I mean, I've heard so many different kind of theories on this about how predators or abusive people or whatever can kind of sniff out their next victim and to walk with your head high and to not smile so much or to not dress a certain way or do all, and this is that kind of stuff. It's you're twisting yourself into a pretzel for some sort of desired outcome. And like I said, there's all kinds of problematic people out there that that are going to come into our lives. They're just out there. They're. So you can change all of these things about yourself, your body language, you can walk with a purpose and you can um, do whatever and still encounter people like that. So it's just how long you entertain that nonsense and how quickly you're able to see it as nonsense. Where a lot of people go wrong is when they're very naive. Um, and again, normal, decent people tend to not have this kind of stuff on their radar. They tend to give other people the benefit of the doubt. And so you get a few of these kind of, that's weird. Like that's kind of a weird thing to say. Oh, sexual chemistry pretty quick. Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of hinting at wanting to have sex right away. Well, I'm not up for that. Um, and then you confront him, or you bring it up, and then he gets defensive and starts backpedaling. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe I am making a big deal out of things, or there's all different kinds of ways that we can minimize our concerns. And so it's really important that we don't fall into that. Again, I've seen this a lot where people, or then they start asking other friends of theirs, or other people in their life, okay, I'm messaging this guy and this is the comment he made. And I guess I'm just blown away by the number of people that really do justify squirrely behavior. And they're looking for, well, how could it possibly be legitimate? Well, maybe he really didn't mean that. Or I don't know, you can lose context in text. Or, oh, this is the year 2020 and, people sleep together right away and da 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 da. And, um, or with this guy, oh, maybe he didn't really mean to send her a text. There's all different ways that you can take your mind to uh, do all kinds of mental gymnastics trying to figure it out and justify it or whatnot. But at the end of the day, if it's inappropriate for you, then that's all that matters. It's inappropriate. And I would encourage you um, to not seek validation from people outside, because more often than not, you're going to get a lot of well-intended bad advice, because we all tend to think that we can spot a problematic person. And, the vast majority of the time we're wrong. We tend to get like a false, we might, how do I want to say this? Get like, it's easy to tell the wolves in wolves clothing, right? It's a lot harder to tell the wolf in sheep's clothing. So, but we all know that wolves don't often come across. If you see a wolf in wolf's clothing, it's a wolf. Like, you don't need to keep spending time trying to figure out if you're seeing things correctly. So, yay for people like that are pretty transparent with their ridiculousness. Okay, that's a great question. Jessica says, okay, follow-up question. How do you find healthy relationships? Do you think it's possible with online dating? So hold on, I got to take a drink of water here. I do think that healthy, happy, well-adjusted relationships are possible with online dating, but really keep in mind that it's a lot of sifting and sorting. It's a lot of sifting and sorting. There's so many disingenuous people on online dating. Um, so I just encourage people, go slow, proceed with caution, kind of hold your emotions back until you realize, okay, is this person who they say they are? Does everything kind of add up? And is this a relationship worth getting emotionally invested in, instead of kind of diving in head first, getting super emotionally invested right away and into this? It's really the fantasy of who we think this other person is. And then the reality starts shining through, and we don't want to let go of the fantasy. And, then we keep trying to make this relationship work when really we need to just drive on. So, as far as finding healthy relationships, in part, it's not so much about kind of stumbling in. Actually, I say it's not about stumbling into a healthy relationship. It's about creating a healthy relationship. And a healthy relationship is only possible if, and let me back up. And I think this was Pete Walker, his term, the good enough. So we're looking for a healthy enough relationship with healthy enough people. It's not about perfection, And so this here's the thing too with relationships. So every relationship starts out with this idealized phase where we see the other person through rose-colored glasses. And it's not even just the other person. We do this in all situations. We start a new job or we go for an interview, and it's this idea, this fantasy of what we think it's going to be. Um, I don't know, you're planning a party and you're super excited about it because you have this idea of how it's going to turn out. it's kind of the same thing with dating, except more so because there's more emotional investment in it. So with dating, it's so our brain just fills in the gaps of what we think this person is based off of the information we have. And that can really cause us a lot of pain. So if their profile is kind of hitting all the check boxes of what you're looking for in a partner, it can be very easy if, let's say, they're the same religion as you, to make assumptions about their morals and values. And that may or may not be accurate at all. I mean, I think we've all seen these people that profess to be of a certain faith or a certain mindset or spirituality, and they lying, cheating, stealing, like just running amok. So, like you you have to just kind of wait to get to know the person. So, anyways, let me get back to the cycle of a relationship. So, there's that idealize phase, and this can last, 30 to 60 days or so. And this is when you're wanting to talk to the person all the time. They're wanting to talk to you all the time. Like you're texting back and forth. The chemistry seems amazing. It feels like, oh my gosh, I've never met anybody like this. This is just so wonderful. It's about time. You're just really getting excited. And then both of you kind of start settling in and getting a little bit more comfortable. And that's when people start getting real. So they start, they're not, the focus is shifted away from trying to impress each other or to get along to now we're just comfortable. So we're kind of speaking our mind more. Um, People are, you're more inclined to just kind of settle in and be like, okay, well, yeah, this is how I really think about this. And they might ask you some things and you start setting boundaries, or vice versa. Boundaries are being set. This is can refer to as like the negotiation phase. So this is when the relationship starts getting real. And this is the negotiation phase is when um, disagreements and differences begin to surface. And what separates this, so if you kind of think of a fork in the road, what separates this phase, so if you're familiar with the cycle of narcissistic abuse, it's idealize, devalue, discard. And it just goes round and round and round. And um, the cycle of a other relationship, a healthy relationship, is idealize, uh, negotiation, resolution. And it goes round and round and round. So the difference where these two paths diverge has to do with how negotiation is handled. So when both people start being real, if they're able to assert themselves in an appropriate and tactful way, this alone is going to whittle the numbers down quite a bit, because this is a more of a kind of high emotional intelligence type skill that a lot of people really don't have. Most people don't know how to functionally communicate with others. So this is when you'll see, kind of during this negotiation phase, you'll see how this other person reacts. uh, they want to have Chinese food for dinner, but you want to stay home and make a salad. They're you know they want you to meet their kids, you're not ready to. They, I don't know, don't celebrate holidays, but you do. These kinds of things. How that's able to be handled. And of course, it's not always going to be handled perfectly. So this is where it comes back to that healthy enough. Okay. So let's say you do encounter some problematic behavior. They get really quiet, or they're not able to assert themselves, and they like leave the room and they have to calm down, or they um I don't know, They're doing things that you're like, this is not gonna work for me, or they're kind of continuing to fight you on, let's say, for example, this is just a small example. Let's say you're wanting to paint your living room, and um, I don't know, you are trying to figure out a paint color. And like, okay, well, what color should we paint it? White or gray? And um, they, you ask them for their opinion, and they say gray. And then you're like, really? I don't know. I really kind of think white would be nice. Are you sure gray? And they say, yeah, I think gray. I vote for gray. And you keep asking them. And finally they say, what you will just whatever you want to paint it white. And so then there's kind of this disagreement, right? With that. If if you're able to then reconnect and talk about it, and if they're able to say to you, you know, I told you my opinion and you kept asking. And so finally I got frustrated and said, you're not really asking for my opinion. You obviously don't want to paint it gray. So that's okay. But I don't want to argue about this, like little squabbles like that, or it could be bigger squabbles. And oftentimes it is, because insecurities also start surfacing around this time, because now they're starting to, people are getting more comfortable, and the relationships at that fork in the road of, is this going to become an actual relationship? And so now there's more of that emotional investment. And when that kicks in, then you've got all of, that person's attachment style kicks in as well, too. So are they anxious? Are they avoidant? Do they have kind of anxious or avoidant tendencies? If you're on holiday with your family, let's say you don't have cell service, you're out in the middle of nowhere, or you're not texting them as regularly as you normally do. And then their mind goes to all kinds of places. Oh, they're cheating on them. You're ghosting them. You don't want to be with them, all of these things. And, you're shocked by that. If you're able to talk about it, and they're able to, again, maturely have that conversation and say, yeah, these are my concerns, these are my fears, and you're able to work through them, that's important. That's the difference. And then, you've moved into that resolution stage when these issues have actually been resolved, because they don't keep coming up. So like the example I gave earlier of, um, if your partner's, I don't know, making eyes at the waitress, or um, texting sexy text or inappropriate text to other people, or these kinds of things. Again, for me, I think that would just fall into deal breaker behavior. I don't even think that's worth wasting your time on. Um, but if you were to bring it up or something like that, I can't think of a good example right now that wouldn't necessarily be deal breaker kind of stuff. Let's say they have a friend. Let's say it's not even inappropriate, opposite sex friend, and you're not comfortable with that. You're like, I don't know. I feel like are we in a relationship, and kind of what's their history, and you're needing some reassurance about that. If normally, like when people want to be in a relationship, they want their partner to feel comfortable with these things. So that negotiation phase is going to be like, well, hey, well, let's all go out. Like, yeah, you should absolutely meet them. This person, I've been friends with them since junior high. We've never dated. It's never been anything like that. We just happen to have, certain things in common. Um, you know, I want you to feel comfortable with this. Come on out with us. And, um, or what have you. That's when that moves. It's when somebody's fighting back. Oh, you're jealous, you're possessive, and I don't owe you anything, and you just need to get okay with this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that just shuts down all communication. And you can tell, like, there's no workability with that. Um, let's see here. Right. This is a great point. Gigi says, yeah, with online dating, lots of vetting, research, and not sharing too much of myself. I let them share with me. I often table certain conversations until dates 3 or 4, if it gets that far. Yes, I agree. Here's some other topics that I wanted to bring up um, that have kind of come up quite a bit this week is a person can ask, I mean, we don't have control over another person's actions, right? But we do have control over our responses. So if a person just because a person asks you a question doesn't mean that you need to answer it. It's okay and healthy and appropriate to always have boundaries, especially in a relationship. So here's uh, one I guess one common question that people want to know it's an absolute no-win question that I just would suggest you don't answer because it's a no-win question or don't even ask. It doesn't matter. Is asking how many partners a person's been with because it like I said, it's either going to cause the other person to feel inadequate or to be judgmental or to feel concerned. Um, there's nothing good that comes out of that conversation. And frankly, a mature person isn't going to be asking those kinds of questions. Frankly, it tends to be more so men that ask this question to women that I've seen than women asking this of men. And I don't like it on a couple of different levels. There's kind of this misogynistic undertone to it of uh I don't know, like how worn out are you? Basically, like how many partners have you had and this kind of thing. And I just think it's a just an inappropriate, very personal question. So I would encourage you if somebody does ask you something like that, um, to just say, I'm not comfortable answering this question because I feel like it's a no-win question. That there's either going to be judgment on your side or that there's going to be potential insecurity. And if somebody keeps pushing it, then that's really pushing a boundary. So I don't think people need to know. It's another thing to say, okay, let's both get tested, let's get our results, let's share that. That's the current up to date sexual history. That stuff's important, but um, number of partners, and the thing is, other people, a lot of people lie. So you're not even going to be getting the truth anyhow. So it's just there's no reason. Nothing good comes from that question. Yes, I think that's a great question. So Missouri Cowboy says, Dana, I ask men if they've ever been married to a woman. And I think that's a valid question. If you're gay, right? If you're in a same-sex relationship, wanting to know, has this person ever been in like a long-standing committed relationship to a person of the opposite sex can be significant, you know? And and to kind of just explore that of, what was that about? And um as far as with the male experience with that, I have obviously very little experience with that, but I can say from what I've heard from a lot of women is that there tends to be this pattern of um, getting into same-sex relationships when they, and of course, this is people outside of women that are actually gay. But a lot of women tend to be more open to a bisexual or same-sex type marriage or relationship when they've been hurt enough by men. And it tends to be the thinking of, oh, women are more nurturing, they're safer, they're all of this. And that's not the case because anybody can be abusive. So it's not the gender that's the issue, it's the behavior that's the issue. So, right. Jack says, yeah, I remember now. It's a question about with men with pair bonding and commitment. I think men ask because they want to know if a woman is going to bail after a while. Yeah, that's kind of the MGTOW premise to it. The whole pair bonding thing, that there's I that it's just it's misogyny disguised as science. And there's a lot of judgment and insecurity there. What is the number? If a woman slept with one other guy, five other guys, 10 other guys, you know, it's this idea of that a person's unable to effectively bond with a person after they've had so many partners. And that's not true. That's not true. So yes, I agree. Gigi says, men earn huge points with me when they provide me their first and last name voluntarily. They even suggest I Google them. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, and I think that this in part can be kind of just the difference between the male and female experience. Some guys, understandably so, are uh, really taken aback by that when a woman wants to know ahead of time, hey, what's your first and last name? Or they want to know more information about him because women are used to letting friends know because it's the fear of, I don't know if you're a murderer. I don't know if I'm going to come back alive. Whereas men don't tend to have that at the forefront of their mind when they're meeting people. So I can see how some men could find that offensive, but I think men who understand that this is a very real concern for women, violence against women is a thing, significantly more so than violence against men. It still happens to men, but significantly more so to women. Um, that we just need certain information in order to feel safe with moving forward. We live in a kind of a crazy world. So yeah, Gareth asks or says it's insecurities that make people ask, how many people have you slept with? Yeah, I would agree. Truth Seeker was saying MGTOW shouldn't be having sex. Isn't that the point to keep walking? LOL. Uh, n- no, my understanding of MGTOW. It's more men not getting in a relationship with a woman to the point where uh, it can really ruin their lives to where there's the kind of not having children with women, not getting married because of having the potential to pay alimony. It's kind of this concern about getting screwed over. And some of it I think is valid. I think there has been quite a few men that have been um, really screwed over. So I get where they're coming from, but I'm not sure. I don't think that it's necessarily women that's the problem. I think if anything, it can be more of the like legal system, and there just needs to be more education and information with. Uh, we just need to update laws, frankly, when it comes to um, alimony and child support and um, marriage in general and how assets are divided and all of this. I'm not saying anything other than uh, it just needs to be revisited because it can put a certain people at a disadvantage, significant and inappropriate disadvantage. Okay, let's see here. Let me scroll. Gigi says, yeah, I usually ask if they've ever been married, any long-term relationships, and or have children. Yes. Yep. I feel like that's appropriate. And how long they've been divorced. That was one of my big questions. There's a lot of people out there that are dating that are separated, um, that are or freshly divorced, as in like last week. And it's simple. I think it's important to know these things. And they might even say, oh, well, our relationship was over a long time ago and this, that, or the other. That might be true, but um and again, everybody's kind of got their line with this, but to me that's a big proceed with caution because, nobody wants to be the rebound, and you want to make sure that they've worked through all of those feelings from that significant relationship. Let's see. Oh wait, Missouri cowboy. I wanted to ask you how when you mentioned that you ask other men to a woman, um, what is your rationale behind asking that question? What has been your experience? Gigi says, "Oh yeah, lots of separated guys, lots of long-term separated legitimately, but not for a relationship with me." Yeah. You'll also come across people that'll say, "Oh, we're in an open relationship," or "I'm married, but my spouse has some sort of disease or disability, and she or he is okay with me having sex with other people." My guess is that's more often than not, that's just a lie. So, kind of doing a Google search, seeing does this person have social media, keeping it simple, meeting them for coffee, the first date, having it be brief, not more than an hour. You're just kind of seeing, like, is there chemistry? Because here's the other thing that's weird with online dating is there's different types of chemistry. There's chemistry. So you can see a person's profile and kind of get a feel if you click. The sentence structure, the writing style, the types of pictures they're putting up, you can kind of tell, like, is this my kind of person or not, right? Then there's the chemistry between emailing back and forth. And that's pretty wild when you realize, oh my gosh, no, there's not really much there. And then you realize, oh, they've put in probably hours into their profile. Um, and they're just not very good with email. Or they're good with email and then you progress to text or to phone, and maybe they're terrible. There's no connection through text. Or if there is a connection through text and you talk on the phone, there's no connection over the phone. So there's all these different ways that there can be connection and then there can not be connection. And so this is why it's important to just kind of keep your feelings on cool until, at a minimum, until you actually meet them and see, is there enough of a click to have a real first date. you know that coffee date is just a coffee date. It's just a zero date. It's just a meeting. Okay, let's see. Oh, congratulations. Embers says, "Oh, I just got a new dream job teaching painting again. I'm so happy." That's awesome. What kind of painting are you teaching? Is it like oil or acrylic or abstract, or um, I guess what is the medium and what is the style? Yeah, True Seeker says, "I'm supportive with MGTOW walking away from abuse. What I think is disgusting is exploiting all women because another one hurt them." I agree. And it's the same for women, like uh well, let's go back to like the MGTOW movement. Yeah, if they're in a situation or a country or an environment where they're like, you know what, there's too much at risk here. I don't want I've seen too many other people get married, have kids, get divorced. Something happens, their wife cheats, something happens, they lose half of everything, and then they only see their kids every other weekend. I don't want that to be me. Or the woman radically changes after we get married, and they have concerns about putting everything on the line to see that it'll work. I completely understand that. That's what I was kind of saying earlier. Well, maybe we need to revisit some of how um, these relationships are structured, frankly, because every state, too, at least here in the United States, it's different. Some states, there's like alimony laws and um, these kinds of things if you live with the person for a certain length of time, or even if you've been married for a short period of time, and let's say you don't even have children with them, and but they haven't worked for however long, a couple years, they might still be entitled to for alimony. And so there's legitimate concerns there, but women that also make a significant amount of money have the same concerns. So I'm all for people saying, hey, I'm just going to structure relationships the way that makes sense. But I definitely don't agree with, uh, you know, the misandrist or misogynistic view of just grinding down the other sex and dehumanizing them. I think it's really dangerous. Oh, that's interesting. Kenneth says, I'm reading a great book about anxiety named First We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson. It's not about abuse, but a great book about anxiety. Might be good for book club. That does sound good. Um, Missouri Cowboy says, I do not and will not date a man who's been married to a woman. It's his boundary. Um, I'm scrolling up here. I know that with same-sex relationship, well, if a woman has been in a same-sex relationship before, or if she's primarily dated women and then marries a guy, um, and I've heard this story kind of time and again, where she really likes the guy, she gets married, they have a couple kids, and then she realizes 5, 10, 15 years into the relationship, that she actually is gay, and um, and then leaves. So I don't know if there's still kind of that. I would imagine there's similar concerns with same-sex relationships with men. Let me scroll, scroll, scroll. Right? Jack says, in this day and age, people should rather expect a background check almost. We don't have as many social institutions or organizations like we used to, but even so. Yeah. Yep. I agree. It's good to just take some time and do a search on somebody. And again, it's not saying that um, they can still have a squeaky clean profile come up and be an awful person, but at least it'll kind of give you a heads up. There's been quite a few people over the years in the support group that have um, have done that, have Googled somebody's name, and then they find out, oh my gosh, no, this person's actually been to jail for like domestic violence, or they're on trial for, something else, or they're on a sex offender list. So you just never know what's going to come up. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Ember says, I used to be an art professor, and this is just a beginner's acrylics class. Oh, how fun. That's wonderful. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. And that's a good point too. Gigi says, not all sex offenders are on the list, only those who were caught and convicted. Yes, and that is an important point because the conviction rate for sex offenders is actually just pathetically low. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll. Okay, Embers asks, what were the 3Ds? It was idealize, devalue, discard. I had a graphic I did a while ago. I need to, um, I'll see if I can post it somewhere where you can kind of see what it looks like in more depth, like a more fleshed out version of the cycle that includes like hoovering and, um, but the cycle of narcissistic abuse, it either ends in the target being discarded or the target finally getting enough and leaving or the target being murdered or the target committing suicide. So it's always a hard ending of these relationships, like just soul crushing across the board. Um Huffle Mom asks, what's a good strategy for when you're in a fight with someone with narcissistic fleas and you suck at Grey Rock? I guess it depends on the person. So, you know, I guess I would also encourage you if there is no if this is a person that you have a relationship with, if you want to continue this relationship with them, uh, then at a minimum, I wouldn't continue having conversations that go nowhere. So you can be assertive and be tactful and be direct and then be firm. So if they want to continue arguing about things or spin the topic, um, you know, off topic, if they want to blame you, if they want to talk about everything else other than being accountable for whatever or trying to reach a solution, then just shut it down and or trying to redirect them. So if you're not able to redirect the conversation, let's say you want to talk about uh, something hurtful that they said, right? And you bring it up. I was really hurt by what you said the other day. And and then they want to fight you on that, or they want to debate it, or they want to bring up other things that you've done in the past that are hurtful and that you're not perfect either. And da 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 da. To say, okay, if you have things that you want to bring up about me, we can do that, but let's just do one issue at a time. So let's get this addressed and resolved, and then we can move on. And then you can talk about this other issue that you have that's unresolved with me. If they're not able uh, to do that, then I would just end it. This conversation doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I really want to get this resolved, and can we try to revisit this tomorrow or in a few days or wherever? But right now, the conversation getting dragged off base, it's spinning around, it's this blame, this the diverting, the deflecting, the all of this, it's not getting us anywhere. So I'm gonna call it a night. I'm gonna go to bed. So I'll see you tomorrow. Uh, oh, okay. Jack says, Huffle mom's talking about me. He says, I have no problem saying it. Okay. Well, yep. Then, yeah, everything that I just said. So, and I guess it just depends on how certain, um, kind of dysfunctional behaviors are surfacing. If it's Huffle mom, if Jack is at the point where I would need to know more context and more of like a situation thing. But if it's, um, let's see, if he's kind of, I don't know, wanting to fight, or he'd mentioned earlier on that he was struggling with a lot of negative self-talk and and that you were having a hard time with that. So if that's more along the lines of what you're talking about, so that wouldn't be something that's directed at you. It's you seeing him basically abusing himself. Then uh, I don't know if like gray rock is necessarily the strategy, but I think just being there to support him and to love him and to be available to talk about these things if he's wanting to talk about them. Okay. Jack says, "Yeah, I'm still struggling with these fleas. Yes, my big struggle right now is writing good messages so the bad messages don't get read, like a vinyl or optical disc." Yes. Or you could do things. So if that's something that you're struggling with, of these kind of negative messages, then maybe coming up with a pattern interrupt that both of you can use. So if Huffle Mom notices that you're falling into this negative self-talk, because sometimes, I think oftentimes, you know, we're not even aware of some of the patterns that we're running. So um, you could say the phrase like cancel, cancel. That was an old, some sales Zig Ziglar maybe, or I don't even know, an old phrase that was commonly used for people to change their patterns of thinking. So I really like that because it's very direct and brings it it just brings it to your awareness. So having something that she could say like that, cancel, cancel, or you saying it when you notice that you're kind of engaging in this type of thinking. And then when you are replacing those thoughts with something different, replace it with thoughts that are accurate. So I'm not a fan of kind of affirmations that are all fluff or things that are just uh, there's no emotional weight to them. It's really, Tony Robbins talks about this. Like, it's about changing the references you have. Like, if you want to change your beliefs, change the references you have for them. And he's so spot on with that. So if you're telling yourself, for example, that I don't know, you're lazy and unmotivated, and you're just getting really upset with yourself that you should be, doing more, or or what have you, to then think about times that that's not true. Like, oh, actually, no, I, got up early the other morning and, cleaned the house, or I've completed X, Y, and Z in my life, or these are all of the ways that I've shown up and been a, uh, helpful, energetic, uh, good partner or person, whatever it might be. Proving to yourself like that, like truly proving to yourself that that belief you have isn't true is important. So it's not just saying it's so like, for example, if they were to have the negative thought of, oh, I'm so unattractive, I just feel so gross. am hideous, you know, who I'm unlovable, who would ever want to love me. Thinking about the things about you that you actually like, instead of just saying, "Oh no, I am beautiful, I'm amazing, I love myself, I'm awesome." That's just all fluff. It's getting specific. Uh, there's lots of things about me that are lovable. I feel like I'm a good friend. Um, I remembered so and so's birthday. I've, um, you know, um, I really like whatever certain features about yourself. I really like my nose, or I really like my hair, or um, whatever it is. Like, I'm not perfect, but I don't need to be. We all have our physical issues, and that's okay. Oh, Canada says, cancel, cancel. I've been using that and I forgot where I learned it from. It was from you, Dana. Imagine that. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that the original person from that is Zig Ziglar. But yeah, I thought that was a good one. Hmm. Jack was saying, I think one of the book club books was about that scrubbing bad messages is rather impossible. The strategy is getting the groove of good messages deep enough. Yes. I think it's a little bit of both, frankly. It really does help when you can prove to yourself that you are capable of, um, when you can see all of your strengths instead of just only seeing all of your weaknesses, and just realize, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe if you're feeling down about, let's say you have a bad day at work, or if you're young and in school, you have a bad day at school and you're feeling stupid, right? Oh, I made so many mistakes. Man, I just am feeling really dumb and I'm just embarrassed and all of that. Then then telling yourself, you know what? Everybody has days like this, and making mistakes is part of success. Nobody starts at the finish line, and it's okay. So you made some mistakes. What did you learn from them? Don't waste it. Don't waste that mistake. What did you learn from it? And giving yourself kind of the encouragement and compassion that you would to somebody that you cared about. I mean, there's so much value in doing that. Truly, there is no value in shaming or belittling or um, just harsh, bitter criticism, and uh, all of that. It doesn't do anybody any good. Even ourselves, if we're talking to ourselves like that, it's that's that kind of like feedback or quote unquote motivation doesn't help. It just contributes to all kinds of ineffective coping, overeating or eating disorders, or spending money, or um, trying to self-soothe, addictions of all kinds. It doesn't work. So there's no point. There's just no point. uh, I hope thanks. Jack was saying Huffle Mom makes for a great moderator because she always reminds people to click the like button. And Huffle Mom was saying, yeah, huge thanks to everyone who already clicked the like button. You guys are seriously cool. And Jack says, I honestly forget to click the like button even when I'm moderating here. uh, I think any live stream channel moderators that remind people whenever I'm on YouTube, I honestly do forget. Yeah. I forget too, and I don't say it. Um, I guess I watch a lot of YouTube, and there's certain things that really bug me about a lot of videos, and that whole kind of, subscribe and hit the like button and do this and do that. It's just, to me, it's so obnoxious. I figure if people really want, if they like, if they like it, they'll click the like button. Um, and if they don't, then they either won't or they'll click the dislike button. And frankly, I've been thinking about just saying, if the people that do click the dislike button, it would really help in the comments for you to let me know why. So I don't, uh, I just look at it as feedback. To me, it's more of a neutral thing in general. So, you know, it's just more helpful if I know why people don't like a certain thing. Missouri Cowboy says, Dana, are all addictions a form of the forage response of the 5 Fs, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and forage? I would definitely, at a minimum, say that it's a maladaptive coping mechanism that stems from the 5 Fs. And it'll depend on the addiction. I think you have um, people, that's the thing. Our brain, we don't consciously choose how we, like, what's considered trauma for us and how we handle it. When we go into these different defense mechanisms, our brain is choosing for us, and that can cause a person a lot of anguish and confusion and shame because of their behavior, because they're shocked by it. Oh my gosh, this person, I saw a car speeding towards my child and I just stood there and watched. I did nothing. What's wrong with me? I'm a monster. And it's like, nope, you were in freeze mode, or um you've got a person that's running back into a burning house, looking for their purse or a photo album. It's kind of irrational behavior. That's tends to be flight. Um, or they go from 0 to 10 really quick and start lashing out, and um, you know and then they're hopefully horrified by their behavior. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I completely unleashed on that poor uh, person in the car in front of me, or whatever it might be. So here's my 2 cents with the forage, that 5th F, that forage response. That's And I actually thought of another one the other day. The forage one is mine. I just came up with that. I don't even know if there's any real science to back that. It's just observational, what I've seen. I think there's forage, and then there's also flinch, which is kind of a combination of that um, kind of freeze and flight response. So, but the forage response, I think you could make the case for like hoarding, especially. Um, for foraging, overeating. I think anything in excess would fall, again, just my 2 cents, would fall under the category of foraging. And then the third one that I was thinking about that we should just kind of add to the pile is fortressing. So that tends to be um, withdrawal, a severe, significant avoidance of um, avoiding other people, just kind of building walls around ourselves, metaphorically or literally, keeping other people out. And, um, sometimes, like, because like with hoarders, it's interesting, watching that show, that sometimes it seems like they're trying to fill up. It seems like there tends to be different motivations for it, I guess is what I'm saying. That some people tend to almost just fall into like this deep, deep depression, this deep hole of just apathy where they just don't have the energy to care. And so then things pile up. And then you have other people that are intentionally, compulsively bringing more and more and more stuff into their house. I think there's and I would need to look it up, but I think that there's subcategories of hoarding, same type of behavior, but different causes to it. So, uh, and I would imagine different types of treatment too. But addictions tend to be, we all tend to cope with things in the best way we know how at the time. And what's considered a trauma, like I was saying before, it depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on the person's age. It depends kind of on their natural um, level of resiliency. It depends on what they've experienced before. So if you've had, what's traumatic to a 2-year-old is not potentially traumatic to a 12-year-old or to a 22-year-old. You know, turning off the lights on a 2-year-old who's terrified of the dark can really cause some pretty significant trauma versus, a 12-year-old who's not afraid of the dark or who has a nightlight doesn't think twice about it. Um, so, kind of figuring out uh, our responses, and then when we're able to figure out, here's the thing too, we're going through life coping in the best way we know how. Okay. And it works, and it works in the short term, and it works until it doesn't. And then when things start kind of splitting at the seams, we start realizing we justify. Oh, I got a DUI. That cop just had a quota. I didn't have that many drinks. Um, it's only one DUI. It doesn't mean I've got a problem. Kind of justifying, minimizing, these kinds of things until it continues to be a problem. And just the problem grows and grows and grows until we can no longer deny that it's a problem and we take action. And it's at that point, that's when the magic starts to happen. So then we're open to possibility at that point. We're open to the possibility of, hey, maybe I do have a problem. Or maybe I do need to learn some different ways of coping. And then we're able to start learning different strategies. And so when we encounter that same type of stress next time, or that same type of compulsion, and that's the challenge too with substances, because then there's even more. There's it's we're not only running to them to cope, but there's also this pull to them. This chemical pull. So um, it takes a while to learn some different ways of coping. But yeah, I think all addictions stem from the 5 or the 8 Fs that we were talking about. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up. Yes. Gigi says, my experience is that children of the Great Depression era tend to hoard, save, and collect for fear of not having things. Yes. Yeah, it's these kinds of significant events in a person's life. It takes generations to fully work through that. My grandparents were immigrants. They immigrated from Sicily, and it was very much, and they were dirt poor. It was very much that immigrant mentality of, if you're not working 80 hours a week, you're a bum. And it was that level, that franticness of survival, of you've got to do what you've got to do. And um, uh, you know, taking time to read a book. I remember my grandmother giving me so much grief if she caught me reading a book. So it was like, and oh, she was a tough cookie. she would say things like, "Oh, how nice to be you." Like to just sit, like this life of leisure. I'm like, it's a Saturday, I'm on vacation. Um, give me a break. But yeah, everybody has their own kind of perceptions in relation to these kinds of things. Money is one of those areas for sure. Money and free time are probably two areas that can be very telling as far as mindset goes. I think growing up, when you either grow up poor or you grow up with parents who grew up poor, it tends to be this. There's still that level of, um, I've got to go, 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 go. Do, 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 do. I've got so many things to do and I'm running behind, and I just have to do more, and really difficulty slowing down. And it's just that anxiety. It's that flight defense. So um yeah, or hoarding food. Um you see this too, foster, if anybody's ever worked in like foster care or um at shelters. um there's telltale signs of certain types of trauma. you know um People, that'll go to like a food pantry and they'll come back with way more than they're supposed to, right? Like they might say, okay, you're able to get, I don't know, so many cans or like 2 bags of groceries, and they end up taking as much as they can carry. And it's that fear of, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I need to take everything right now. So, um, and in terms of children, another way this, trauma tends to surface is then there's changes. So this goes back to like that friend, I guess that would be more of like the friend response or the fawn response with the 5 Fs, but maybe like an offshoot of the fawn response. But this level of, early maturation. So kids feeling really responsible. They're like little parents, right? You might see an 8-year-old who's cooking the meals and doing their own laundry and taking care of their younger siblings, and they're not acting like an 8-year-old. They're maybe they're playing video games with their friends, and most kids are super, you can't even, like, they don't hear you, right? Like they're so immersed in the game that they don't even know what's going on. But you've got this kid, if they maybe grew up in a home where their parents just weren't there, either physically or emotionally, or maybe there was addiction or something going on in the house, where that 8-year-old had to be a parent, or their younger sibling was at risk of falling down the stairs, or drowning in the bathtub, or hurting themselves or something. And so it's interesting to see, and sad to see little kids that are so mature for their age. And that's a big sign right there, because that something's off. Or the flip side of that, people that um, are very immature for their age. That's an interesting thing too, to observe, where maybe they're 30 years old, but yet they're acting like they're 13. And there's just this immaturity about kind of the way they dress and their hobbies, and their conversation, their topics of conversation. It's it's strange, and you get the vibe, you're like, this is so weird. I feel like I'm talking to a 13-year-old, and here this person's 30 or 40. And yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Gigi says, it's a false maturity though with these kids. But it's definitely an inappropriate degree of maturity, because a kid can only be so mature. They don't have the life experience. They don't have the ability to have control or to make decisions. So they can only be so mature. You know what I mean? And Um, but yeah. Embers, I was talking to Missouri Cowboy and asks, is foraging for comfort things or safety or anything? I think it can be, shopping, um, buying things to kind of make us feel better, bringing things in to make us feel better. You look at animals that do this, uh, squirrels, collecting nuts or whatever it is. Like they're preparing, they're hunkering down, right? They're preparing for something, and humans do this too, but just not well. Sometimes to the same degree, sometimes even more. It's just different. And here's the thing with the 5 Fs, these aren't, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we all have defense mechanisms and they're all there for a reason. So it's a good thing that we have all of these different defenses. As far as mental health goes, it's our ability to shift in and out of these different defenses and when appropriate. It becomes problematic if we stay locked into one. So if we're locked into that flight mode where we're keeping busy with activity, 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 and we're avoiding having relationships with people, we're, you know, uh, let's see, the flight into um, just kind of any imbalance. You're spending too much time on Netflix or YouTube or even getting lost in a book. These kinds of things when it's extreme like that and it's negatively impacting your life. I guess that's when it's a problem. So it's not a problem if you've had a long day, and you're like, you know what? It's been a long week or what have you. Saturday, I am going to sleep in and I'm going to um, make myself, I'm going to order a pizza and I'm going to do nothing. And I'm going to binge watch some show on Netflix and I'm just going to unwind. Like that would be flight and that's okay. Like it's okay to do that from time to time. It's just whether or not we're able to shift gears and not do that, for weeks on end or days on end. Let's see here. Hmm. Uh, let's see here. Gareth says, I'm going to go make a tuna salad sandwich. Anyone want one? Embers says, my grandma survived the Depression and had garbage bags of canned food, dirty tissues, uncashed checks, all kinds of detritus. Now I'm helping my mom pack, who's another hoarder, and I'm an art supply hoarder. Yeah, it can be quite the undertaking. My other grandmother, my mom's mom, um, had she had an apple tree in her backyard, and she would, um, and if you've ever had an apple tree, you can't get rid of the apples fast enough. I mean, you just get so many freaking apples. And she would make applesauce, like apple jam, apple jelly, apple pies, apple, everything. And um, she had when she passed and we were cleaning out her house, she had freezers in the basement just full of apple stuff, stuff that, it, she felt compelled to make it, but it was just her. So, I mean, how much apple butter can one person go through, Um, that kind of thing. Yeah, uh, yeah, it's interesting and sad to see kind of the mindset behind that. Mhm. Let's see. Let me scroll down here. People are talking about weight loss. Kenneth is saying keto is better for fast weight loss. He says Triple H would do keto right before a pay-per-view. Triple H is a wrestler. for, for those of you who are not familiar with him. Yeah, here's the thing with diet is it really is about lifestyle changes. And um I need to lose weight too. And I just need to make those changes. It's difficult. That's the thing. We look at other people and we're like, man, what's wrong? Why can't they just change? Why can't they stop drinking? Or why can't they stop being abusive or what have you? Change is hard, even if you really want to do it. It's really easy to get motivated when you're in the moment, but it's hard to keep that motivation going, especially when you get a craving or you encounter a stressful time in your life or you get busy. And so it's kind of figuring out, it's anticipating for that, like realizing change is difficult. Change will always cause discomfort. They go hand in hand. There is no one without the other. And so anticipating that and planning for it. And I need to be taking my own advice. So like for example, with meal stuff, I tend to eat, I tend to stay, um, I tend to work a lot and I'm very busy. And um, I don't eat with any degree of like regularity, which is a problem. And because of that, I tend to munch or I snack on things. And it tends to be prepackaged, high carb, refined stuff. And, so realizing that, like those salad bags, those are wonderful because that's super fast. So, just kind of keeping the junk out of the house and replacing it with other fast, healthy food. I don't know. Lots of ways to set ourselves up for success and that it's a lifestyle. There is a channel if you're interested in weight loss and health and all that. I absolutely adore this guy. His channel is he's just he seems like a phenomenal human being. And his channel is called Obese to Beast. And he's lost, I forget how much weight. I want to say like 230 pounds or so. And he just is, he's just such an inspiration. And to see where he's taken himself in life. Highly recommend you check out his channel. Oh, that's interesting. Jennifer says, I highly recommend Abby Sharp's YouTube channel. She's a licensed dietitian and she talks about relationships to food. She just really has a healthy outlook on the whole diet culture we have. Okay. And her name, again, if you guys are listening to this, Abby Sharp, Abbey, and then Sharp. Hmm. Uh, yeah. And Mike is saying, some things are general, but a lot of things are individual. For example, some people can eat dairy and others not, but sugar is toxic for everyone. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Sugar is toxic, and especially here in the United States, man, sugar is in freaking everything. It's in everything, and it's a huge cause of inflammation and just it just destroys destroys our body. I was making a grocery list today, and I use Instacart, which makes me feel very bougie. Like I feel like Oprah when I get Instacart and I get my groceries delivered. It's so nice. I think I will always do Instacart because I absolutely hate going to the grocery store. I think I'd rather stick a fork in my leg than or step on a nail, frankly, than go to the grocery store. I just it's horrible. So, anyways, um, I was, putting things on my list, and I find myself I have when I have cravings, I'll add junk to my list. And then when reason comes back, then I delete them off my list. And I was thinking like, well, I should really get something that has sugar in it because I do get cravings. And and then I was like, no, Dana, you can eat fruit. Like you're fine. You're fine. You don't need Pop Tarts. You don't need the junk. You'll make it through. It's just it's crazy how our brains can justify things and then start to kind of feel panicky. Ridiculous. Yeah, Denora says, I'm a big fan of finding an activity or recreation that energizes you. Staying active and feeling healthy are a healthy aim rather than focusing on weight. I agree. I agree. It's developing a healthy relationship with food and just a healthy relationship with exercise, you know, and a healthy relationship with ourself. So, yeah, my challenge is my thing was aerial yoga, and the studio is closed, which makes me very sad. The other thing that I found lately that I really do enjoy is when I was in Houston, my niece had this thing called a Y flicker, and it's this like Y shaped scooter, and it propels by side to side motion. So it kind of looks a little silly. That's so much fun. It's so much fun to ride, but I don't I don't I can't see myself uh just wiggling down the street by myself. It's another thing if you're riding it with an 8-year-old because then there's kind of that excuse. But when it's just you and you're in your 40s, I think might look a little strange. Um, I guess not that I really care how it looks, but I guess maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe I do. Ember says, I flicker all the time. Do you just get over the feeling that you're just wiggling down the road? I feel like it would just cause a lot of pointing and laughing. I don't know. Maybe I just need to embrace it and go with it. Yeah, Gigi says, my thing is dancing and teaching dance. I also enjoy yoga. Miss them both so much. I prefer a class and not alone in my basement. Yes. Yes. Grace says, I'm 43 and I'm learning to skateboard with my kiddos. It's a great way to get to the park, but I don't think I would do it by myself. Yeah, my nephew has oh, what is it? It's like a skateboard, but it's uh like it's so cool. It's two boards that are connected in the middle, and they I think each of them has like maybe a 15 to 30-degree range of motion. And so it's really, really cool. And it's skateboarding. Yeah. Yeah. I could see. Yeah. Again, it's one thing if I'm with kids, it's another thing, um, me doing that on my own. Cha cha cha. Embers says, I'm 50 and I flicker with the music blasting. I love it. Maybe I just need to embrace it. We'll start a gang. The flicker gang. Yes, how is that going? Huffle Mom says it's so hard to be active right now. The entire Pacific coast is covered in smoke from the wildfires. I miss being able to go out and take a walk in the morning. Yes, I saw pictures the other day. It's shocking, absolutely shocking how the color of the sky and all of it. Are they getting them even close to being contained? UNA says aerial yoga. That sounds like so much fun. It is on so many different levels. It really is. And it's incredible. I just love it. I just love it. If you get a chance to ever go to an aerial class, it sounds um a lot harder than it is. It's not. So it's kind of it's this like parachute type material, and they're suspended from generally like support beams, you know. Uh, yeah. So and I want to say that they hold up to like around 250 or so pounds, and you can adjust the height, so which is helpful. So there was a guy in the class that I used to go to all the time, and he was tall. I don't even know, like 6'4", 6'5", and he was into aerial yoga, and I used to always get so nervous because boy, he just would come really close. It just made me nervous that he was going to hit his head or something else, but he didn't. He was always fine. So you can adjust the slings and the swings, and uh, you can do the same like aerial or same yoga poses in using the swing, and it's so much more of you can get more of a stretch or less of a stretch. You can lay in it, and it feels like a little cocoon. It's so fun, and the fabric it stretches out. I'm about 5 foot, 5'1" at the start of the day, and I fit comfortably in there. And I would imagine a person maybe like up to like 5'5", 5'6" would there's enough fabric in there to like get your toes under and get it over your head. And it's so relaxing. It's a lot like being in a hammock, except it's completely opaque. Um, there's all kinds of just stretching exercises. It's wonderful as an alternative form of, like there's trauma yoga, and um, it's an alternative form of, or an additional form, I should say, maybe, of trauma yoga. So feeling that kind of just being hugged, like that closeness, is a very reassuring feeling. I just can't say enough good things about them. I mean, you can buy the swings and stuff on Amazon. They're, I want to say like 100 and um, like the whole setup is under 150 bucks, but you'd need to um, have a place that you would be comfortable screwing it into support beams in your house. But yeah, so um yeah, Gigi says, yeah, restorative yoga, laying in positions and meditating for 15 to 20 minutes each pose. So good. Yes, absolutely. And Embers, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, says or asks, are weighted blankets good for CPTSD? Yeah, weighted blankets are wonderful. Anybody that's struggling with anxiety or um, mm, just kind of overstimulation in general, PTSD. You name it. Weighted blankets are wonderful. They're wonderful for kids. They're wonderful. They have even for pets, like for dogs that get really anxious with fireworks or what have you. They have weighted vests that you can buy them, and it's a very grounding. It's a very grounding thing. Weighted blankets are also wonderful for restless leg syndrome and for insomnia. So they recommend that you, if you're going to get a blanket, and you can, again, you can get these, you can get everything on Amazon. Um, you can also find them at like your local stores, but you can find them online. Uh, from what I remember, it was about looking for a blanket that's about 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, getting a blanket that's around 15 pounds. And that's also going to probably depend on your age and your level, your strength. So if you're 150 pounds and you're 75 or you're 85, that might be too heavy, and they are heavy. So it's like they're surprisingly heavy. So then you might want to go down to something that's like 8 or 10 pounds, just something to kind of consider. But they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. Yeah, Jennifer says my boyfriend's weighted blanket doesn't seem to help his insomnia though. Yeah, I think it's more for people that have trouble falling asleep, not so much like full out insomnia. Like people that are actually able to get to sleep, but maybe struggle with kind of restlessness. It helps them to just stay calm. Yeah, Jack was saying, oh, Gigi was saying the chair hammocks hug their bodies and make swinging cocoons. Instead, I just switched out the swings on my swing set for chair hammocks. My kids love them. And Jack was saying, yeah, I've seen something similar in one of our son's autism classrooms. Yes, that was originally my only experience with a weighted blanket. I used to work with a teenager really with autism. This was years ago, and she had a weighted blanket, and so I had only, I guess, ever really thought about them in terms of, um, it helped to ground her when she was feeling really overstimulated, and her anxiety was starting to to progress significantly, and um, that was her go-to. She would just go get her blanket, and she was fine. So yeah, Bricks and Feathers is saying the weighted blankets have glass beads in them. They are, um so the one that I bought, uh I would recommend that you get like a duvet cover for it. So that way you can take off the duvet cover and wash it, because like Bricks and Feathers is saying they do have glass balls in them and they're just heavy. I would imagine that it would cause your washing machine to um, struggle with, being imbalanced, and then you've got to, bail out the water. And I don't know. It just seems like that would be kind of a cumbersome way to do it. Plus drying it, I don't know, I'd be concerned it might damage the dryer. But um, yeah, they have duvet covers for them, and I know you can wash them, but I don't know if I would do that. Yes, it's along the same lines of that. Lori was saying, yeah, remember those heavy aprons at the X-ray machine at the dentist? Like that feeling of that. Yes, yes, that's the feeling. It's awesome. And uh, uh, the aerial yoga swings. Gigi, if you guys like the chair hammocks, since you already have, because it's basically the same setup. So you have the hooks screwed into something, and then there's chains that drop down. That Check it out. Go on Amazon and look up yoga swings. If this even remotely interests you, but they attach with like the carabiners. So you clip them on, and uh, it's even better than like the hammocks. They're just awesome. They're so wonderful. Uh, cha cha cha. Let's see. Gareth is talking about his height. Oh, he was saying he's 5'6", and he says no, he's fine at this height. He says my nephew doesn't like being small. Yeah, I think it's just what you're used to. Um, I didn't. This is gonna sound maybe really ignorant. I didn't. It wasn't until I began reading more about like the whole kind of um, incel type movement and realizing how big of a deal height is for some people, like for guys, and for, I guess, for some women too. That was news to me. So I guess, again, I'm like 5 foot, and my people, we are a small people. So when I was in Italy, it was interesting because every it's not abnormal. Like everybody there is about that height, in Sicily. So not unusual. It's just kind of all where you live, I guess. Gareth says, yeah, my nephew really has an issue with this height. Yeah, that makes me sad. I did, in all fairness, I did too when I was younger. I didn't like being short. And people always I still get comments about it. Of, oh my, how tall are you? Har har har. And um, it's just kind of obnoxious. But I'm sure it's different for women than it is for men. But my brother, he's, I don't know, 5'6", 5'7", tops. And he's got no problem. He's always dating somebody, has no problem getting a girlfriend. But he's uh, and I don't think it's like to substitute for his height or anything. Like I don't think I mean, your height is your height, and people either have an issue with it or they don't. Just like your hair color, right? Or just like anything else. Like it's either an issue for people or it isn't. Um, but he just has a really great personality, and he's just an awesome guy. So it's not a shocker to me that women kind of throw themselves at him. Sarah says, hi, everyone here. This is off topic, but I'm dealing with the worst problem. The narcissist won't let me break up with him. I dated him for 2 years, caught him cheating. He keeps insisting that I give him another chance. Well, my dear, I think the issue that you're having is that you're still giving him a, a vote in this. Um, you're not, this conversation doesn't need to be a conversation. It needs to be, you just informing him. Like, I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to debate it. I'm not asking you. Like, I'm informing you. We're done. That's it. He's going to beg and plead and blame you and get upset and he's going to do and throw a fit and do all that. And, um, but it's okay to have your boundaries and to stick to them. So don't wait for his approval before, uh, you know, for you to take action. You just need to do what you need to do. Stay safe, when doing it. That would be my other kind of advice for you. But yeah, you don't need to give him another chance. Lori says, short people are adorable. Uh, my grandmother, the Italian one that was really intense, she, of course, she was, older. And so she was shrinking, and she was, in her 90s. And by then she was probably like 4'5". I mean, she was really tiny. And, but nobody, she just was tough. Like nobody messed with her. you know, like she just didn't take any guff from anybody. And, uh, yeah, she was cute. Gareth is saying, yeah, my friend stammers or like has a stutter. It's one of the only times I cried when he told me what he'd gone through because of bullying. It broke my heart. Can you imagine? I hear ya. That kind of stuff just I I don't get it. I don't understand how somebody could pick on anybody, really, but especially um I don't know, especially with somebody with uh an issue like a stutter or yeah, any type of like, difference or um my brother has dyslexia and he would get teased for that. And uh yeah, it's just like I just don't get that at all. And it makes I feel the same way. It makes me angry. I was watching Ink Master. I've been on this Ink Master marathon thing lately. And one of the challenges they did was they had um kids, well, and there was a few adults. It was people that had um to wear helmets due to either epilepsy or like narcolepsy or some type of they had to protect their head for some sort of health reason. And this one kid was so sweet, and he was getting bullied at school for wearing a helmet. And this kid had undergone like I don't even know, like a handful of brain surgeries. And he just had it so rough, and he just was so sweet. And I was so mad watching that episode. Like, okay, I need to like I need to go on a road trip and find those bullies, because what's up with that? I mean, really, how much of a garbage person do you have to be to bully somebody like that, that obviously has issues that far exceed that just makes me so angry. Okay, soft breezy days asking Sarah. Okay. Um she says, I really don't want to give him another chance. We have no ties, no kids together. That's wonderful. I struggle to support myself and be independent. He lives with his mom and with his child and uses his child against me. I'm so soft. He says he's going to lose his son if I go to court and get a protection order. I don't know what to do. Um, well, he is, I would make it very clear to him that um, you, and maybe phrase it in a way that is going to take some of the steam out of his argument. So it can be helpful even to just say this, okay? To say something like, basically, it's not you, it's me. Like, okay, yes, you cheated. I know you're sorry. I know you want me to give you another chance. Um, you make it about you. I just have trouble moving past that. I just can't move past that. Or I can't, and because I can't move past it, then um, I would be continually suspicious and jealous and angry, and I would probably just make your life a living hell, because I would want to know where you are all the time. It wouldn't, it's too much. It would make you miserable and it would make me miserable. So that way you're kind of like, I'm doing both of us a favor, kind of a thing. And just make it very clear. Like, I think we just kind of need to part ways. And, um, and it, he's probably going to keep on. So you might want to see about, um, blocking his number. I don't know if there's fear involved, which it sounds like there is. If there's a protection, you're thinking about a protection order, then, um, yeah, I would kind of tread lightly. Right. And Soft Breezy Day says, yeah, he needs to stop so he doesn't lose his kid. And Sarah said he's abusive in every single way. Yeah, his behavior is going to cause him to lose his child, not you getting an order of protection on him. It's not reasonable for somebody to continue to like harass and bother and um, e- stalk and do all of these things, and for another person to not do anything in response to it. So, it's up to him. Y- You know, eh, is he going to go? Is he going to leave you alone? And that's kind of the added challenge too with the order of protection of every situation is different, um, with whether or not you feel like that's something that you want to file. Do you feel that you um, how, I guess, what are your thoughts about that with getting an order of protection? Thank you for clarifying that, Gigi. I was thinking that it wouldn't either, but I wasn't 100%. She says an order of protection will not affect his custody. And Salon says, hi, Dana. Have you read or know about the book Trauma and Recovery by Judith Herman? Also, I don't like it when symptoms are referred to as phenomenons, especially if more than one person has them. I have not heard of this book. Do you recommend it? And when you're talking about symptoms being referred to as phenomenons, is that something that she mentions in her book, or where did you uh, hear that? What was the context that you heard that in? I'm copying and pasting what you're saying about the book. Ah, there we go. Okay. Uh, let me scroll up here. Jennifer saying, I used to love heels so much in my 20s when I was dating my ex, but that's because I used to go out a lot more. I hardly go out anywhere now with them now. I'm in my 30s since not being with them. And it's probably because I don't go out hardly anymore, but it's better for my feet in the long run. Yes, I hear you. I used to wear like big heels like all the time when I was in my 20s. And yeah, the same. We'd go out dancing, we'd go out, having a great time. And I don't know how my back did it, but I guess it really didn't. I guess I was always in pain. I just learned how to live with the pain. Yeah, now I I wear flats. If you would have told me when I was in my teens and 20s that I would wear flats, I would not have believed you. But now that's pretty much all I own. And no regrets. No regrets. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Jack says, Dana, some people have asked about co-parenting with a narcissist. There's been several people in here asking about co-parenting with a narcissist. There is an excellent book out there, and actually, it might be the only set of book notes that I have on my website right now. Let me go look. It's called Divorce Poison, and it is fantastic. Even if you weren't married to this person. Yes, okay. It is the only set of notes right now on my website. So if you go to my website, thriveafterabuse.com, go under read, and then the drop down menu, go under book club, and you'll see my notes for Divorce Poison. He covers a lot of ground in that book, and um, just kind of like what to expect, how to anticipate, how to prepare for it, how um, kind of strategies to um, kind of to kind of take the wind out of the sails of parental alienation and different challenges that surface when you're in a relationship with a person who's like a high conflict personality, basically narcissist or not, just a difficult person. And I don't know if it was in that book or not, where kind of the difference between co-parenting and parallel parenting. And I think that's a really valid concept. So, co-parenting is ideal where you work as a team to raise your child. But if you have a child with a high conflict person who's so angry at you, and they're feeling, and this is very common for abusive people to feel like the victim, where they're upset with you for having boundaries and giving them consequences of their actions, that it's your fault for tearing apart the family. But really, it's the consequences of their actions that tore apart their family, right? Um, but they get very upset about this, and they're taking it out. They're using the child to punish you, kind of a thing. So they're just being difficult, and they're not looking to work as a team. You say, okay, please make sure if you take the kids on Wednesday night that you have them back by 8:30 so we can make sure homework's done and baths and all of that is done because they have school the next day. And then your ex rolls in and it's 10:30 and the kids have done none of their homework. They haven't even eaten dinner. And now you're running behind and you're upset with your ex and your ex doesn't care. Like that kind of thing. Like once you realize, okay, we're not able to effectively co-parent. Whatever I say, whatever the court says, this person just doesn't seem to care. So how can I parallel parent? So parallel parenting is kind of you have your own um, parenting style and your own rules for your house and your own way of doing things, and they have theirs, and you just kind of you realize I don't have control over this. It would be wonderful for the sake of the kids if we could get on the same page with um, boundaries and rules. If your house is, hey, no R-rated movies, and their house is Coney Island and it's a free for all. Oh yeah, you guys want to smoke, you want to drink, you want to watch R-rated movies, you want to do whatever, you know, that's difficult. But realizing this is what we're doing, we're parallel parenting. So um yeah, the challenge. It is a challenge. Yes, and this is a great point too, Gigi. Mentions in Divorce Poison, there is the mention of parental alienation. Be warned, it is domestic abuse by proxy by the abuser. Parental alienation is the false claim of the abuser. This is very common. And this goes back to like that level of entitlement and justification for it. It's this how dare you um give me consequences uh, or what have you. So they might often be accusing you of alienating their child because you're not letting them. Um, you're trying to get their custody reduced, or you're basically just trying to take care of your kid, because when you get your child back, they come back like, neglected, like dirty, hungry, um, abused. Your child's coming back, or your child's coming back telling you things that they said or that friends of theirs said. And that parental alienation is when one parent is alienated by the child for seemingly no reason. And it can happen intentionally. It often happens intentionally, but it can also happen unintentionally. And again, it's very difficult when you have a child with a deeply dysfunctional person with very low emotional maturity, and they have a high level of narcissism. Like, there's no level of accountability or insight or responsibility, or any of that. Everything's always everybody else's fault, because they think, well, if I have a reason for what I do, then therefore it's valid. Instead of being like, well, we all have reasons for what we do, that doesn't make our behavior necessarily valid. They don't get that. So um, the result is the kids start kind of getting poisoned or like manipulated to to back away from the other parent. And this can happen in all sorts of ways. Um, you know, uh, Again, like unintentionally too, and sometimes by just insensitive or kind of tone deaf type people that are around, or just malicious. There's the full range: malicious, dysfunctional, ignorant, you name it, people around the other parent, where maybe they're talking trash about you to your child, or loud enough that your child hears. So let's say they're on the phone and your child's out playing in the backyard, and they're sitting out in the backyard watching them, and they're making comments about what an awful mother you are, or father, or what have you. And that here's all the just kind of stuff that kids, even if it's true, like, kids don't need to know. um, a lot of it's not even true, but just awful, awful things. It's damaging. So one of the strategies that they talk about uh, is um, kind of working with the support people in your life. So if you have supportive parents or friends, if your child's over there or spending time with them, especially like family, um, really making it a point to not talk bad about your ex, and to let the kids know that this place is a safe place, and that they can talk about things if they overheard something, if they have questions, if they um, if they have any issues, that they can talk to you about them, and that you'll be able to talk talk it through. So I'm trying to think of some other strategies. I guess that's the main thing that comes to mind. Uh, Let me scroll up here. Jennifer was saying, my dad had custody of me and my sister and he was always so strict. And when we went to my mom's every other weekend, she was the complete opposite. Let us eat whatever we want. Me and my friend would always easily sneak out of the house, but that was impossible at my dad's. Also because we had a blended family with my dad, so a lot more people in the house. Yeah, and that's challenging when there's two very different environments. That's kind of what I had. My mom was very rigid, I don't know if I'd say rigid. That I don't mean it in a negative way. Like, she really had good um, boundaries and stuff. Of course, we were kids. We, um, wanted, like, for example, this was such a source of frustration. Is she wouldn't let us watch PG-13 movies until we were 13. Didn't matter if we were 12 and a half. Like, you had to be 13. So that was really frustrating. Little things like that. Whereas my dad, and especially with when my stepmom came into the picture, her house was an absolute free for all. So we loved going over there. Yeah, it's hard kind of figuring out where your boundaries are when you're going to different houses. Um, let's see, Gareth, what? Huh? Gigi saying parental alienation and parental alienation syndrome, which has been debunked. Be wary of reunification camps and therapists. I, I would like to know more about that. I mean, I've seen parental alienation, so I mean, I know that that's absolutely a thing. Where one parent, let's say they're abusive, and then let's just go with the stereotype. The husband's abusive, the wife leaves with the kids, and the husband feels um it's unfair and angry and upset about that it's his wife's fault, that she should have given him more chances, and commitments forever, blah blah blah. Even though he wasn't going to be changed or wasn't interested in changing, and everybody was on the receiving end of abuse on a regular basis. Then when the kids are with them, saying things like, your mom is the one that broke this family apart. I wish we could have stayed together, and I wish we could have the holidays together, and I wish things were different, and kind of making themselves out to be like the sympathetic character who only wants the best. Uh, and it's the other parent that the child, boy, I would love to take you guys out for dinner, but I don't have any money because I have to give it all to your mom. Stuff like that. Like, that's not cool. And it causes damage. And then, depending on the age of the kids and kind of the level of awareness they have, the kids can start feeling resentful of, oh, it's mom's fault. How come I can't believe you didn't give dad another chance, and uh, on and on and on. So it can be heartbreaking to see kids pull away from. It can be so heartbreaking to see a parent who's experienced so much abuse and has bent over backwards trying to do right by their kids and to advocate for them, and to uh, go to great lengths to get them out of abuse, to then have those kids just treat them terribly because they just have been manipulated, and yeah, they just don't know different. Kenneth says, I must go. Hopefully, I contributed to the conversation tonight. Have a great night, everyone. Yes, you absolutely did. Thank you so much for being here. I saw your comment about ASMR type things. I am still open to it. Paul and I need to get on the same page with when we're going to start with all of that. So, hopefully, here in the near future. I know I've been saying that for a while, but I do mean it. Gareth is talking about abuse in terms of men, and Huffle Mom was saying, yeah, men, on the other hand, are told that inability to handle abuse means that they're weak, which is bad. How many of us in this chat believes protecting yourself makes you weak? Yeah, I agree. It's it's really sad and disgusting and infuriating how anybody can be invalidated like that. There's a wonderful video that was circulating on YouTube maybe about a year or so ago on uh, sexual assault of men, something along the lines of like sexual assault of men as comedy, and how many times violence against men is used as a joke or like as a punchline. And it's really disturbing. It's disturbing on several different levels. Like it's disturbing that that's a thing. And then it's disturbing of how normalized it is that it's flown under the radar for so long. And it's not seen as just disgusting, invalidating, just horrific behavior, because that's exactly what it is. You know, and just how normalized that it has become with making jokes about, oh, this guy's going to get raped in prison, or um oh, you know, better be careful, like don't drop the soap, and just stuff like that. And it's not funny. And it was a really very eye-opening video. You know, and same thing too with just emotional abuse in general. I People quite often, I would say, ask the question of you know, they're kind of having the dilemma of, oh, I don't know how I feel about calling like emotional or verbal or psychological abuse abuse. I feel like that term abuse, if I'm like in an abusive relationship, should only be reserved for physical abuse. And I get where they're coming from. I think that's a pretty standard starting point for most people of understanding what abuse is. Because again, everybody has this idea of what an abusive relationship is like. You know, it's the abuser is, you know, never smiles. They're mean. They're gruff. They're, you know, just horrifically physically abusive to the other person. And that is very rarely what that looks like in action. You know, abusive people aren't 100% abusive 100% of the time. Or if they are, I should say, their abusive behavior can come across as caring and compassion. And, you know, there's highs and lows more often than not to these relationships. You know, they're abusive, but then they take you out for dinner, or they buy you a gift, or they apologize, or, you know, they throw you some sort of crumb of kindness to keep things going. Um, and so people, there's this minimization with emotional and verbal and psychological abuse of, oh, well, since it's not physical abuse, it's not real abuse. But it's that emotional, psychological, and verbal abuse has long lasting damage that it does to a person. And I would say it's even more impactful than physical abuse. It's the all of the emotional abuse that surrounds the physical abuse that's the problem more often than not. And I would even say I would be curious to know the suicide rate. I don't know if anything's ever been tracked like that, but if we're saying, oh, physical abuse is so dangerous because of the um, you know, mortality rate, I would say that the death rate in terms of emotional abusive relationships is even higher. But again, that's hard to track. But it's very common for people to cope in the way that they best can at the time, which is tends to be addiction, drugs, alcohol, um, or suicide. So yeah. Oh gosh. Bricks and Feathers says, I was emotionally abused growing up, and I used to wish I would be physically abused. At least it would be over, and I wouldn't have been left with unending self hatred. Yes. A lot of people that experience emotional abuse too have this, and it sounds so twisted, right? To say like, "Oh, I kind of wish there'd been physical abuse involved," but they were kind of wanting that for the concrete proof of, is this in fact a problem? And that the physical abuse tends to be taken more seriously. Like people see, okay, this is an abusive relationship. Um, you need help versus emotional abuse, which is, oftentimes like minimized and invalidated of like, oh, it's just a toxic relationship, or you guys, you just bring out the worst in each other, or um, they're very quick to kind of discount things. But there's long lasting effects to it, and it is traumatic. Or even with physical abuse, because again, the imagery that we tend to see around physical abuse is severe physical abuse. A battered woman is what you tend to see. That tends to be the image, right? A black eye, uh, a woman cowering in the corner, kind of a thing. And again, that's on the extreme end of things, where a person's actually in the hospital or has like, significant visible physical injuries from abuse. It tends to be more on the mild end, which people can look at and be like, okay, well, yeah, that, you know, give me a break. Oh, you dislocated a finger, you know, or oh, come on, not that big of a deal. Like the whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case that was going on. I don't know if it's still going on or not, but one of the fights that they got in, it she threw a bottle at him, and it you know, cut part of his pinky finger, pretty deep. Like I think it either, well, I think he had to get stitches. Like it was a pretty good cut. Like it almost cut off a chunk of his finger. That kind of thing where when you're telling the story, it can sound kind of like, oh, that's a really minor injury, but it's not. Like that's significant violence in a relationship. Even the point of the throwing of a bottle at somebody, that's significant. So this is why I think a lot of victims, especially men that are on the receiving end of this, have a hard time coming forward because, here if you're filling out a police report, it can sound um, it can sound really trivial because people have this idea of what physical abuse is, and it's very different from the actuality of it. So, yes, absolutely. Fatima, hi, by the way, says, even if you have been physically abused, you will experience emotional abuse as well. Yeah, I really can't even think of a scenario where there would be physical abuse without emotional abuse, because kind of physical abuse, like there can be emotional abuse without physical abuse or direct physical abuse. But if there's physical abuse, there's always emotional abuse, because brutalizing another person there's an emotional impact to that. And generally, even that aside, physical abuse tends to be like a late stage form of abuse. Abuse tends to be progressive. It very rarely starts off with out of the clear blue, somebody just hits another person. There, there's kind of this, there's just kind of this progression of it. They start getting rough. Um, I had a friend of mine who was in a really abusive relationship when she was younger, and she said it was the moment they were walking into a movie theater. He'd been totally fine up to that point. I mean, they'd only been dating for a few months, but walking into a movie theater, and I don't remember if she said something or something happened, and he grabbed her arm really hard And that caught her so off guard, like that he would just be that rough with her because he was upset. And it just started progressing from there. So, and that's tends to be how it goes. So, I think I'm going to sign off here pretty soon. My I've had a long day. I've had a very long day today, and I'm really tired. I had 4 hours of driving today. Today, I should also today I spent um I was around quite a bit of people. Not because I necessarily I went out to breakfast with a friend and a very small cafe uh, for the first time since I haven't really been out since like March. So that was weird to go into the world. I don't know how I felt about that, to be honest. It was very unnerving, but it was good to see a friend and um, ran some other errands. And this is the most time I've spent like out of the house in society since March. Really weird. Uh, Soft Breezy Day says Johnny and Amber look like NPD meets BPD to me. I think they both contributed, but he agreed to record therapy with the idea to recover his image. This comes from listening to some of them. It's my 2 cents on things. Um, if we're talking just kind of general attachment styles, Johnny's the way the two of them together, just again, my 2 cents, what I saw in that is that he was, um, whenever there was conflict or confrontation, he was significantly more avoidant. And whereas she was definitely more anxious and had that, and I would agree with borderline personality disorder, but had um, this really skewed mindset of confusing like intensity with caring or concern. And I think that's where this would get ramped up. It was sort of like, prove to me you care, prove to me you care. And there was one recording I heard of her where she was talking about their fight and she was saying, I just want you to stay here. Like I want to work things through and I want things to be resolved. And um, Johnny Depp was so just kind of non-ruffled and very calm about it. And kind of like, I'm not, I'm not going to fight with you. And, you just, like, I think it's bad. I'm just going to leave. And like, he would leave the hotel room or whatever. But even though that was absolutely the best thing to do for somebody with probably her attachment style or those um, kind of triggers, I think that's what was fueling all of it. But my guess is she brings that level of intensity and chaos and conflict to every relationship she's in, because if that's how she's used to, um, it's the intensity of um, the the fighting followed by the making up. It's the same kind of person of trying to start a fight in a bar or a restaurant or whatever so that their boyfriend will finish it. It's like, oh, if you really cared, you'd beat that guy up. I mean, it's dangerous and crazy and very immature. But that was what I saw. So, the more kind of non-reactive, I should say, the more non-reactive he was, the more reactive she became. because his lack of reactivity was reinforcing to her. She was interpreting that as, oh, you don't care. And so she kept pushing him, and it was emotionally and physically, to be like, show me you care, show me some emotion, is basically what it was. Yeah, soft breezy day was saying, yeah, I agree that she'd be impossible to have a relationship with. Yeah. And here's the thing, I fully believe that she believes her version of events. That's very common, because again, you're seeing it through that skewed mindset of a kind of disordered way of thinking, of that's her way to get her needs met. That's her way to resolve conflict. That's um you know, I really don't think that I think she saw it as she was being abused, by him um setting boundaries, by him um just kind of not feeding into it. I don't know. It's really wild, and I'm glad that they're not together, and I feel I feel for both of them. I hope she gets the therapy that she needs and has the insight. She's able to get the insight needed to make her life work for her. And I hope that he's able to get the healing and support that he needs. So, yeah, Soft Breezy Day says, yeah, I don't think he wanted to repair anything. Yeah, well, in his defense, I would think that kind of behavior would get really old really fast. So, the recordings that I had heard of him, her recordings that she had recorded trying to prove to make him look bad, uh, just showed him as very, it's that avoid, like, very withdrawn, very kind of non-confrontational, very gray rock, just sort of like, well, whatever, that's not what happened, but just kind of not arguing, um, but not reacting, not really raising his voice, just very even keel. And that was you know, causing her to go into orbit. That's interesting that you say that, Gareth. He says, I'm sorry to say this, Dana, but I felt you were depressed for a few weeks. You seem very different today, more bouncy, etc. I I think, I struggle with depression. I've struggled with it pretty much all my life. It's chemical. It's not um like negative thinking or um eh, not to like discount that at all, but it's chemical. Like, I'll do fine, and then it all of a sudden I fall into a hole, and then it takes me a long time to get out. There's no rhyme or reason for it. So I'd made, what was it, 2019, I'd made the declaration to myself. My New Year's resolution was to make my mental health a priority. And so I feel like I finally am on the right combination of medication. And I noticed that mm, yesterday and today that I'm feeling really good for the first time in a very long time. Like, my energy is good, my mood is good, um my thinking is clear. I'm able yeah, it's to the point where I feel like I want to cry. Like, it's so much better. So I hope it lasts. That's the hard thing. When you struggle with any type of health or mental health or physical health challenge, when you have these good moments, Um, it's when you go through this enough times, it's this fear of, I don't want to get too excited because what if it doesn't last? And that's kind of where I am. But yeah, trying to appreciate it for what it is now. Embers asked, have you found any natural supplements or herbs to help with depression? With the kind of depression that I experience, no, I haven't. Um, well, I should say vitamin B and vitamin D help, but not enough. So right now I'm taking, and of course, this is not medical advice, everybody's different, but I'm taking Wellbutrin and Prozac. So they act on different receptors. And that's been a good combination. So fingers crossed. Let's see. Yeah, Mike is saying, yeah, niacin can help. Look up Abernhofer. I think I did. I think it was you mentioned this the other day, or not the other day, like a few weeks ago, about niacin. There was a video, and I don't know if it's the same person, um, niacin in terms of treating schizophrenia of all things, and with significant results. It was shocking and awesome. So, oh, thanks. Angeline says, I understand completely. Sending you lots of air hugs. Milk Dud says, hi, Dana. I've cut my stepmother out of my life, who is a cluster B. She emotionally and verbally abused me for over 15 years. To add to the madness, my father is also a narcissist. Even so, I'm trying to maintain a relationship with him, but he's making it very difficult. He will use any opportunity to guilt trip me to accepting her again, especially now that I'm a new mother. He recently had a family member reach out to me to go to lunch. It didn't take me too long to realize that they were one of his flying monkeys trying to convince me to make amends. It's as if we can never move past the decision I've made. My feelings are never validated. His feelings are more important, and I must submit to them. He called me 2 hours after I met with the family member, flying monkey, but I've ignored his calls. I don't know what else I can do at this point. I'm running out of gas. Well, I guess I would encourage you to make it very clear of your boundary and then of the consequence. So, Dad, um, I want to have a relationship with you. And the decision that I had made regarding mom was something it took me a long time to come to. And it's the decision I've made. And I need for you to respect this boundary. And if you don't, then I'm going to need to start distancing myself from you as well. And I don't want to discuss this. I don't want to debate about it. This is my decision. And then the ball, you've made it clear. This is your boundary. This is your consequence. Now the ball's in his court. He either respects your boundary or if he doesn't, then you start getting distance. So that's all any of us can do in these situations. And then maybe if he's doing okay for a while and then 3 years down the road, he brings it up again, you call him out on it again. Dad, I told you, we're not having this conversation. I've made my decision. I'm sticking with it. And um, then I guess I need to go. And whatever you're doing, you're supposed to, I don't know, you're having lunch with them or whatever, then you end up calling that lunch short. Like, I need to go now. And people that don't see an issue with their behavior have no motivation to change. And like we mentioned before, even if you want to change, change is hard. So for those people that aren't motivated to change, the only uh, possibility of them getting that motivation to change is if they experience pain. And that's the importance of a consequence. Continuing to talk to somebody to explain and explain and explain and explain, they heard you. Like, the issue isn't with communication, the issue is respect for your boundary. And the only way that they're going to have respect for a boundary is if they realize there's a consequence. And this is what we do with kids, right? When we're training, they're puppies or something. Uh, when we're teaching the basics of appropriate behavior, of this is what yes means, this is what no means. I said you can have a cookie, but you have to eat your dinner first. Um, and then the consequence has to get them where it has to be appropriate, age appropriate, right? But it has to also get them where it hurts a little. So, uh, okay, you didn't listen, you didn't do this. Well, okay, then no phone for the rest of the evening, right? If you don't follow through on that consequence, then or you only follow through halfway, or you give in and you said no phone for the rest of the night, and you give in a couple hours after dinner or whatever, then the kid learns, oh, if I just continue to beg and plead and nag and cry and scream and threaten and do all these things, I'll get my way. Mom will eventually cave. So it's holding your ground. It's the same thing with adults. It's holding your ground. I said this is my boundary. This is the consequence for it. You cross the line, there's the consequence. I can't control, we can't control another person's behavior. Like, they're going to do whatever they're going to do, but you can control yours. And um, that's all any of us can do. So yeah, I see a lot of people who um, think that they're being assertive and they think that they're having boundaries, but a boundary is only complete if there's a consequence attached to it. The consequence may never need to be utilized, but there needs to be some sort of consequence. Continuing to stay in that place of, well, I told him that wasn't okay, and I just keep telling her that, da 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 da, and we're in therapy, and we're just keep going through the same issues, and I just don't know why this person just can't understand. And this is not okay with me, and you know, it's they get it. Like, communication isn't the issue here. Like, the issue is about control. So, okay. So with that said, I think I'm going to sign off to UNA says, I've got to run. Thanks for another great live stream. Love ya. Thanks everyone. Yeah, and I think I'm going to run too. My voice is going and I am really tired. So I hope you have a wonderful evening and rest of your week. And as always, just lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care and just lots of love to you. So see you next week. Bye.